The Zephyrian High Command had never encountered anything like the humans before. Admiral Vexthala stood before the massive holographic display, her four arms crossed behind her crystalline back, as she studied the data streaming in from their observation posts scattered throughout the Terran system. The readings made no sense. "Impossible," she whispered, her translator converting the clicks and whistles of her native tongue into the standard galactic language. "Show me the Sol 3 surface scans again." The hologram flickered, revealing a planet that should have been nothing but ash and radioactive debris. 3 standard cycles ago, the Zephyrian Empire had unleashed their most devastating weapon upon the human homeworld. The stellar cascade generator had torn through Earth's atmosphere, boiled its oceans, and cracked its continental plates. Every simulation, every projection, every mathematical model confirmed that nothing could survive such destruction. Yet the humans endured. Captain Mordek, her tactical advisor, manipulated the display controls with nervous precision. "Admiral, the humans have not only survived the initial bombardment, but they appear to be adapting." The hologram zoomed in on what had once been the human city of New York, where towering structures of glass and steel had stood. Now massive underground complexes sprawled beneath the surface. Thermal readings showed millions of life signs, organized and purposeful. The humans had not simply hidden. They had transformed their entire civilization in the span of 3 cycles. "How?" Admiral Vexthala's voice carried the weight of genuine bewilderment. "Our xenobiologists assured us that carbon-based life forms could not possibly survive the radiation levels we measured after the Cascade event." Captain Mordek's mandibles clicked anxiously. "Admiral, there's something else. The humans appear to be using our own attack against us. They've somehow converted the residual cascade energy into a power source. Our sensors detect massive energy spikes coming from their underground facilities." The Admiral's primary eyes narrowed, while her secondary pair focused on a different section of the display. "What are they building down there?" Before Captain Mordek could respond, a new voice echoed through the command center. Lieutenant Velshar, their communications specialist, was practically vibrating with excitement and terror. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the human homeworld. It's directed specifically at our fleet." The command center fell silent. The Zephyrians had been observing from what they believed was an undetectable distance, using their most advanced stealth technology. The humans should have no knowledge of their presence. "Impossible," Admiral Vexthala repeated, but her voice carried less certainty this time. "Play the transmission." The holographic display shifted, revealing the image of a human female. She appeared to be middle-aged by human standards, with graying hair and weathered features that spoke of someone who had endured hardship. But her eyes burned with an intensity that made several junior officers step back from their stations. "Greetings, Admiral Vexthala of the Zephyrian High Command," the human began, speaking perfect galactic standard. "My name is Director Sarah Chen, and I represent the Unified Earth Resistance. We know you're out there, watching, waiting to see if your weapon succeeded." Admiral Vexthala's 4 arms trembled slightly. How could they possibly know her name, her rank, the existence of their observation fleet? Director Chen continued, her voice steady and calm despite the devastation that surrounded her. "Your stellar cascade generator was indeed impressive. It killed approximately 40% of our population in the first day. Another 20% died in the weeks that followed. You succeeded in destroying our surface cities, our governments, our entire way of life." The human paused, and something that might have been a smile crossed her features. "But you made one crucial mistake. You underestimated what humans become when you back us into a corner." Captain Mordek was frantically working at his console, trying to trace the transmission's origin. "Admiral, the signal is coming from everywhere. They've somehow tapped into our own communication networks. Every ship in the fleet is receiving this message." Director Chen's image remained steady, unwavering. "We know about your empire, Admiral. We know about the 47 species you've conquered and enslaved. We know about your expansion plans, your resource extraction operations, your belief that you are the dominant force in this galaxy." The human's expression hardened. "We also know that you're not expecting resistance. None of your previous conquests fought back effectively. They surrendered when faced with overwhelming force, accepting subjugation as preferable to extinction." Admiral Vexthala found her voice. "And you believe you can succeed where others have failed? Your species is primitive. You haven't even achieved faster-than-light travel. Your weapons are laughably inadequate compared to our technology." Director Chen's laugh was cold and sharp. "You're right about our technology, Admiral. We are primitive compared to you. But you've made a fundamental error in your assessment of our species. You see our technological limitations and assume we are weak." The transmission flickered, and suddenly the image split into dozens of feeds from across the Earth's surface. Each showed humans working with desperate efficiency in massive underground facilities. They were building something, but the Zephyrian sensors couldn't penetrate deeply enough to determine exactly what. "For 3 cycles, we've been studying the wreckage of your weapons," Director Chen continued. "Your people are brilliant engineers, Admiral. The Stellar Cascade Generator is a masterpiece of destructive technology. But you know what's interesting about masterpieces? They teach you things about their creators." Captain Mordek's voice was barely a whisper. "Admiral, we should retreat, prepare for a full-scale bombardment of the planet. End this now before." "Before what?" Admiral Vexthala snapped. "They're trapped on a dying world with no space capability. What could they possibly?" The displays around the command center suddenly erupted with alerts. Sensors throughout the Zephyrian fleet detected massive energy signatures emerging from Earth's surface. Not the chaotic, uncontrolled energy of weapons, but something far more organized and purposeful. Director Chen's voice cut through the chaos. "You want to know what humans become when you try to annihilate us, Admiral? We become something you never encountered before. We become unified. Every nation, every culture, every person on this planet is now working toward a single goal." The energy signatures were growing stronger, more focused. Admiral Vexthala watched in growing horror as her instruments registered power outputs that rivaled their own capital ships. "Your previous conquests submitted because they were afraid of dying," Director Chen continued. "But you can't threaten people who have already died. 40% of our species is gone, Admiral. The rest of us, we have absolutely nothing left to lose." The first projectile emerged from Earth's surface, moving at a significant fraction of light speed. Admiral Vexthala had perhaps 3 seconds to process what she was seeing before it struck the outer edge of her fleet. The escort destroyer, Glorious Victory, simply ceased to exist, vaporized by an impact that released energies comparable to a stellar event. "What was that?" Captain Mordek screamed, his professional composure finally cracking. More projectiles were emerging now, dozens of them, each tracking toward a different Zephyrian vessel with impossible precision. Admiral Vexthala realized with dawning horror that the humans had somehow converted their planet's entire mass into a weapon system. Director Chen's image remained calm, almost peaceful, as chaos erupted around the Zephyrian fleet. "We studied your cascade technology, Admiral. We learned how you manipulate stellar physics, and then we improved it." Another destroyer vanished in a flash of converted matter, then a cruiser. The humans were systematically dismantling the most powerful fleet in Zephyrian history with weapons that shouldn't exist. "This is impossible," Admiral Vexthala shouted. "Your species lacks the mathematical understanding too." "You're right," Director Chen interrupted. 6 months ago, we lacked that understanding. But you know what happens when you give humans a problem we need to solve to survive. We solve it. We don't sleep. We don't rest. We don't give up. We find a way." The Admiral watched in stunned silence as her fleet, the fleet that had conquered nearly 50 worlds, began to break apart under the precision fire from what had once been a primitive planet. "Every human who died in your attack became data for our calculations," Director Chen continued. "Every city you destroyed gave us raw materials. Every life you ended motivated the survivors to work 18-hour days in conditions that would kill most species." Admiral Vexthala's flagship shuddered as near misses from the human projectiles created gravitational distortions in local space. Her engineers were screaming reports that made no sense, energy signatures that violated known physics, materials that shouldn't be able to exist, weapons that operated on principles beyond their understanding. "We're retreating," she announced, her voice hollow with defeat she had never experienced before. Director Chen's smile was visible now, and it was terrifying. "No, Admiral, you're not retreating, you're learning." The human woman leaned forward, and her eyes seemed to look directly at Admiral Vexthala despite the vast distance between them. "You wanted to know what humans become when you try to annihilate us. We become your worst nightmare. We become a species with nothing to lose and everything to prove." The transmission ended, leaving the Zephyrian command center in stunned silence as their supposedly invincible fleet continued to disintegrate around them. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in the massive crystalline chambers of Nexus Prime, the neutral world that had served as the center of interstellar diplomacy for over 2,000 cycles. Representatives from 47 species gathered in their traditional circular arrangement, but the atmosphere was anything but traditional. Ambassador Kethmora of the Selenian Union was the first to speak, her telepathic voice resonating through the translation matrices that allowed the diverse species to communicate. "We have received disturbing reports from the Zephyrian Empire. Is it true that an entire battle fleet has been neutralized by a primitive species?" High Counselor Zarthal, the ancient Voidborn who had presided over the council for 3 centuries, gestured with one of his energy tentacles toward the central holographic display. The image showed what remained of the Zephyrian fleet, scattered debris fields, and the few ships that had managed to retreat to the edge of the Sol system. "The reports are accurate," Zarthal's voice carried the weight of millennia. "Admiral Vexthala's expeditionary force has been reduced from 143 vessels to 27 functional ships. The humans accomplished this with weapons that appear to violate several fundamental laws of physics." Representative Quindella of the Hegemony shifted nervously on her support platform. Her species had been one of the more recent additions to galactic civilization, conquered by the Zephyrians only 50 cycles ago. "How is this possible? The humans barely achieved nuclear fission when we first detected them. Their technology was millennia behind ours." Dr. Velterran, the Council's chief xenobiologist, activated his personal display with a complex gesture of his 6 manipulator arms. "That assumption appears to have been fundamentally flawed. Our analysis of the human species focused entirely on their technological development and societal structure. We failed to account for their biological and psychological adaptability." The hologram shifted to show detailed scans of human physiology and brain patterns. "Humans possess several unique characteristics that we initially dismissed as evolutionary quirks. Their neural plasticity exceeds that of any known species by a factor of 12. Their stress response system, rather than shutting down higher functions as is normal for most life forms, actually enhances cognitive performance under extreme pressure." Ambassador Kethmora's mental voice carried a note of disbelief. "You're suggesting that near extinction improved their capabilities?" "More than improved," Dr. Velterran continued. "It appears to have triggered what can only be described as a species-wide evolutionary leap. The humans who survived the initial cascade bombardment display brain activity patterns that are significantly different from baseline human norms. They're processing information faster, making connections between concepts that should be impossible for their developmental level, and demonstrating problem-solving abilities that rival our most advanced artificial intelligence systems." High Counselor Zarthal's ancient features showed genuine concern for the first time in living memory. "Show them the weapons analysis." The display changed again, revealing technical specifications that made several representatives recoil in horror. "The humans somehow reverse-engineered Zephyrian cascade technology in a matter of cycles," Dr. Velterran explained. "But they didn't simply copy it. They improved it beyond anything we thought possible." Representative Morgoth of the Titanium Collective, a species known for their engineering prowess, studied the data with obvious fascination and growing alarm. "These power output readings can't be accurate. This would require a complete understanding of quantum stellar dynamics that took my people 12,000 cycles to develop." "The readings are confirmed by multiple independent sensor arrays," Dr. Velterran replied grimly. "The humans have somehow converted their entire planet into a weapons platform. They're using the gravitational field of their world itself as a focusing lens for directed energy beams that operate on principles our best theoretical physicists don't fully understand." Ambassador Yilzeth of the Crystalline Dominion spoke for the first time, her voice like the sound of wind through crystal caves. "What does Admiral Vexthala report about their capabilities?" High Counselor Zarthal gestured again, and a tactical recording began to play. The assembled representatives watched in stunned silence as human weapons systematically dismantled what had been considered the most powerful military force in known space. "The Admiral's report is disturbing," Zarthal said carefully. According to her analysis, the humans were not simply defending themselves. They were demonstrating their capabilities. The precision of their attacks, the systematic way they disabled rather than destroyed key vessels, this was a message. What kind of message? Representative Quindella asked, though her tone suggested she feared the answer. Before Zarthol could respond, every communication system in the chamber activated simultaneously. The massive displays, personal communicators, and even the ancient quantum resonance crystals that powered the facility all received the same signal. The image that appeared showed the interior of what appeared to be a vast underground facility. Thousands of humans worked with mechanical precision at stations filled with technology that seemed to blend Zephyrian engineering with innovations that defied classification. At the center of this activity stood Director Sarah Chen, the same human woman who had addressed Admiral Vexthala. "Greetings, members of the Galactic Council," Director Chen said, her calm voice carrying easily through the chamber's translation systems. "I apologize for interrupting your proceedings, but circumstances require immediate communication." Several representatives began shouting in their native languages, but High Counselor Zarthol raised a tentacle for silence. "How are you transmitting to us? Our communication systems are protected by quantum encryption that assumes your encryption is more advanced than our current capabilities," Director Chen interrupted politely. "We've been monitoring your communications for the past 2 cycles. Your discussion of our species is quite enlightening." The humans' ability to penetrate supposedly unbreakable galactic communication networks sent a wave of fear through the assembled representatives. If they could do this, what else were they capable of? Director Chen continued, as if she were discussing weather patterns rather than demonstrating technological superiority that should have been impossible. "We understand that our recent actions have caused concern throughout the galactic community. We want to assure you that humanity has no desire for conquest or territorial expansion." "Then what do you want?" High Counselor Zarthol asked, his ancient voice carrying centuries of diplomatic experience. Director Chen's expression grew serious. "We want the same thing any species wants, Counselor. We want to survive. We want to protect our people. We want to ensure that what happened to us never happens to anyone else." Representative Morgoth leaned forward in his support cradle. "You speak of protection, yet you've just demonstrated the ability to destroy any fleet in space. How does the Council know you won't become the very threat you claim to oppose?" For the first time, Director Chen smiled, and somehow that was more terrifying than any weapon display. "An excellent question, Representative Morgoth. The answer is simple. We don't want your territories. We don't want your resources. We don't want to rule anyone or anything." She paused, and the camera perspective shifted to show the scope of the human facility. It stretched for kilometers in every direction, filled with technology that hurt to look at directly because it operated on principles that violated basic physics. "What we want," Director Chen continued, "is for species like the Zephyrians to understand that the age of conquest is over. No more stellar cascade generators, no more enslaved populations, no more extinct civilizations." Ambassador Kethmora's telepathic voice was barely a whisper. "You're threatening the entire galactic order." "No," Director Chen replied firmly. "We're protecting it. The galactic order you've built is based on the strong dominating the weak, the advanced subjugating the primitive. That system created the Zephyrian Empire. It created the conditions that led to the attempted genocide of our species." The hologram zoomed in on Director Chen's face, and her eyes seemed to look directly at each representative individually. "Humanity offers the galaxy a choice. You can continue with business as usual, conquering, enslaving, destroying, and deal with the consequences, or you can help us build something better." High Counselor Zarthol's voice carried genuine curiosity along with fear. "And if we choose to continue as before?" Director Chen's smile never wavered, but something cold and implacable entered her voice. "Then you'll discover exactly what humans are capable of when we're truly motivated. The Zephyrian fleet was a demonstration, a gentle reminder that humanity is no longer helpless." She gestured, and the display showed images of similar facilities being constructed throughout the Sol system. Not just on Earth, but on Mars, the Moon, the asteroid belt, and even the outer planets. Humanity was converting their entire solar system into a fortress unlike anything in galactic history. We've spent 3 cycles studying your technologies, your societies, your military capabilities, Director Chen continued. We know the location of every major world, every strategic resource, every potential threat in this galaxy. We know which species can be reasoned with and which respond only to strength. The implications of her words sent waves of terror through the assembled representatives. If the humans had truly penetrated galactic networks so completely, they possessed intelligence capabilities that made them the single most informed entity in known space. What we're offering, Director Chen said, her voice returning to its earlier calm tone, is partnership. Help us establish a new system based on cooperation rather than domination. Help us create something where advanced species mentor primitive ones instead of conquering them. Representative Quindella found her voice, and if we refuse... Director Chen's expression didn't change, but somehow the temperature in the chamber seemed to drop several degrees. Then you'll learn why humans have a saying about sleeping giants. You had the choice to leave us alone, to let us develop naturally among the stars. Instead, you tried to annihilate us. The transmission began to fade, but her final words echoed through the chamber with absolute certainty. That was your mistake, and it will be the last mistake anyone makes regarding humanity. The communication ended, leaving the most powerful beings in the galaxy sitting in stunned silence, finally understanding that the balance of power in their universe had shifted forever. Emperor Voskarl of the Zephyrian Empire stood before the massive strategic display in the war room of the Imperial Citadel, his 4 primary arms clasped behind his back, while his secondary pair gestured at the holographic representations of his shattered fleet. The reports from Admiral Vexthala had seemed impossible at first, a primitive species somehow developing weapons capable of matching Zephyrian technology. But the evidence was undeniable. Your Imperial Majesty, General Mordeth approached cautiously, his ceremonial armor clicking against the polished floor. The full strategic analysis is complete. The humans have indeed neutralized 67% of our expeditionary force using weapons that appear to operate on enhanced versions of our own Cascade technology. Emperor Voskarl's mandibles clicked in the pattern that indicated deep thought mixed with growing rage. The Zephyrian Empire had conquered 47 star systems without ever encountering meaningful resistance. Their military doctrine was based on overwhelming technological superiority that made prolonged conflicts unnecessary. A single demonstration of their stellar Cascade generator had been sufficient to convince every previous species to surrender. How? The Emperor's voice carried the harmonic undertones that indicated barely controlled fury. How does a species that hasn't even achieved interstellar travel suddenly possess weapons that rival our own? According to Admiral Vexthala's preliminary reports, General Mordeth began carefully, the humans appear to have reverse-engineered our Cascade technology from the wreckage of our initial bombardment. But sire, they didn't simply copy our designs. They've somehow improved them. The strategic display zoomed in on the Sol system, showing the energy signatures emanating from the human homeworld. The readings were so far beyond baseline human capability that several of the Empire's top scientists had initially declared them sensor malfunctions. "Show me the tactical breakdown," Emperor Voskarl commanded. The hologram shifted to display a 3-dimensional battlefield analysis. Each human weapon strike was highlighted in red, while the corresponding Zephyrian vessel damage was shown in blue. The pattern that emerged was terrifying in its precision. The humans didn't attack randomly, General Mordeth explained. They systematically targeted our command ships first, disrupting fleet coordination. Then they disabled our long-range communication arrays, preventing us from calling for reinforcements. Finally, they eliminated our escort vessels while leaving our capital ships intact but powerless. Emperor Voskarl studied the tactical display with the eye of someone who had personally led military campaigns for over 2 centuries. This wasn't a desperate defense. This was a calculated demonstration of superiority. Yes, sire, intelligence analysis suggests the humans could have destroyed our entire fleet if they had chosen to do so. Instead, they seem to have been teaching us a lesson. The Emperor's rage was building to dangerous levels. His species had evolved from apex predators, and the concept of being considered prey by what should have been inferior beings triggered responses that went beyond rational thought. "Mobilize the 2nd and 3rd fleets," he ordered. "Ready the planetary siege platforms. If the humans want to demonstrate their capabilities, we'll show them the true power of the Zephyrian Empire. General Mordith's hesitation was barely perceptible, but Emperor Voskarl caught it immediately. You have concerns, General. Sire, perhaps we should consider negotiation before escalating to full-scale war. The humans may be willing to discuss terms. Negotiation. Emperor Voskarl's voice rose to a pitch that made the crystals in the war room resonate with dangerous frequencies. A primitive species attacks the Imperial fleet and you suggest negotiation? We are Zephyrians. We do not negotiate with inferior beings. The Emperor moved closer to the strategic display, his four arms manipulating the controls to show the full extent of the Zephyrian military. Thousands of ships, hundreds of orbital platforms, weapons capable of sterilizing entire star systems. Prepare the absolute cascade generator, he commanded. General Mordith stepped back involuntarily. The absolute cascade generator was a theoretical weapon that had never been tested. It was designed to destabilize entire star systems by triggering cascade reactions in their primary stars. Sire, the absolute generator is still in development. Our scientists estimate only a 40% probability of successful deployment, and even then, the collateral damage could affect neighboring systems. I don't care about collateral damage, Emperor Voskarl snarled. I care about demonstrating that no species challenges the Zephyrian Empire and survives. Ready the weapon. As General Mordith reluctantly began issuing orders, neither of them noticed the small fluctuation in the war room's communication systems. For just a moment, an additional data stream piggybacked onto their secure networks, recording and analyzing every word, every tactical plan, every strategic decision. 12 light-years away, in the underground facilities of Earth, Director Sarah Chen watched the intercepted transmission with a mixture of sadness and grim determination. She turned to the assembled group of scientists, engineers, and military strategists who had become humanity's unofficial leadership council since the Cascade bombardment. They're not going to stop, she announced to the room. Emperor Voskarl is mobilizing their entire military for total extermination. They're even preparing something called an absolute cascade generator. Dr. James Morrison, formerly of MIT and now Earth's leading expert on captured Zephyrian technology, looked up from his analysis station with concern. Based on the technical specifications we've intercepted, that device could destabilize our sun. We're talking about the complete annihilation of everything within 5 billion kilometers. General Patricia Hayes, who had somehow survived the initial bombardment despite being in the Pentagon when it was vaporized, studied the tactical projections with professional interest. How long do we have? Their fleet movements suggest 6 to 8 weeks before they reach optimal firing position, Director Chen replied. The question is, are we ready for the next phase? Dr. Alina Vasquez, the quantum physicist who had led the breakthrough in understanding cascade technology, nodded grimly. Project Prometheus is operational. We can deploy the enhanced systems within 2 weeks. And Project Atlas? Director Chen asked. Ready for immediate implementation, confirmed Director Michael Zhang, the former head of China's space program who now oversaw humanity's new industrial capabilities. We've successfully converted the entire asteroid belt into mobile weapons platforms. Each unit can function independently and self-repair using automated mining systems. Director Chen moved to the central display, which showed not just Earth's defensive systems, but the entire Sol system converted into a fortress unlike anything in galactic history. What the Zephyrians couldn't see from their distant observations was the true scope of human adaptation. The Zephyrians are making the same mistake they made the first time, she observed. They're assuming we're still the same species they attacked. They don't understand what we've become. Dr. Morrison highlighted specific sections of the intercepted Zephyrian communications. Their intelligence is 3 cycles out of date. They know about our surface defenses and the lunar installations, but they have no idea about the outer system platforms or the deep space interceptors. More importantly, General Hayes added, they don't understand our manufacturing capabilities. We're not just defending what we have. We're building new weapons systems faster than they can deploy their fleets. Director Chen activated a private communication channel. All stations, this is Prometheus Control. The enemy has committed to total war. Implement Protocol 7 immediately. All civilian population centers are to be evacuated to the deep shelters. All military production facilities are to switch to wartime schedules. Throughout the Sol system, humanity responded with the coordination of a species that had learned the true meaning of survival. On Mars, massive factories that had been disguised as mining operations began producing weapons systems that incorporated technologies beyond anything the Zephyrians had imagined. In the asteroid belt, what appeared to be simple mining stations revealed themselves as mobile weapons platforms capable of independent operation. But the most significant change was in the humans themselves. The survivors of the initial Cascade bombardment had been forever altered by their experience. The constant presence of lethal radiation had triggered adaptive mutations that enhanced their cognitive abilities, their reaction times, and their capacity for strategic thinking under extreme stress. "Director," Dr. Vasquez called from her station, "we're receiving another transmission from the Zephyrian war room." The display showed Emperor Voskarl addressing his full military command. "The human infestation will be eliminated completely this time. We will not make the mistake of underestimating them again. Every planet in their system will be reduced to component atoms." Director Chen watched the Emperor's rage with something that might have been pity. He still doesn't understand. They think this is about technology. They think this is about weapons. She activated the general communication system, addressing every human in the Sol system simultaneously. "This is Director Chen. The enemy is coming with everything they have. They believe they can destroy us through superior firepower. They don't realize that firepower isn't what makes humans dangerous." Throughout the underground cities of Earth, the orbital platforms of Mars, the asteroid mining stations, and the deep space monitoring posts, 40 billion humans listened to their leader's words with the calm certainty of a species that had already died once and chose to continue existing. "What makes us dangerous," Director Chen continued, "is that we don't know how to quit. They destroyed our world, killed 60% of our people, and scattered the rest to the corners of space. Any rational species would have surrendered." She paused, and her smile was visible to every human in the system. "But humans aren't rational when it comes to survival. We're vindictive, we hold grudges, and we never ever forget." The communication ended, but throughout human space, preparations continued with the relentless efficiency of a species that had learned to treat extinction as simply another engineering problem to be solved. The Zephyrian armada that emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system was unlike anything in galactic military history. 3,000 vessels arranged in perfect battle formation, their hulls gleaming with the distinctive crystalline armor that had made the Empire's fleets feared throughout 47 star systems. At the center of this massive force sat the Emperor's personal dreadnought, Eternal Dominion, a ship the size of a small moon and capable of sterilizing entire planets with its primary weapons. Emperor Voskarl stood on the command bridge, surrounded by holographic displays showing every aspect of the human system. His tactical analysts had spent weeks planning this assault, accounting for every defensive capability the humans had demonstrated in their previous encounter. "Status report," the Emperor commanded, his four arms moving in the ceremonial gestures that indicated supreme confidence. Admiral Kethvaler, who had replaced the disgraced Vexthala as fleet commander, manipulated the central display to show the tactical overview. "All fleets are in position, Your Majesty. The Absolute Cascade generator is charging and will reach full power in 6 standard cycles. Our scout ships report minimal human activity in the outer system." Minimal activity. Emperor Voskarl studied the scanner readings with growing suspicion. "Where are their defenses? Where are the weapons platforms that destroyed our previous fleet?" "The humans appear to have withdrawn to their inner system, sire. Intelligence suggests they're concentrating their defenses around their homeworld and the inner planets." The Emperor's mandibles clicked in a pattern that indicated deep thought. Something about this felt wrong. The humans had demonstrated remarkable strategic intelligence in their previous encounter. Why would they abandon the tactical advantages of fighting in open space? "Begin long-range bombardment," he ordered finally. "Target their outer system installations. I want to see how they respond." The Zephyrian fleet opened fire with weapons that could crack continents. Energy beams capable of boiling oceans lanced across millions of kilometers toward what appeared to be human mining operations in the asteroid belt. The results were immediate and shocking. Instead of destroying the human installations, the Zephyrian weapons seemed to simply disappear into them. The mining stations absorbed the incoming energy and began to glow with increasing brightness. "What just happened?" Emperor Voskurl demanded. Admiral Kethvalor was frantically consulting his tactical officers. "Sire, the humans appear to have converted our weapons' fire into power for their own systems. The asteroids we targeted are now showing massive energy signatures." Before the Admiral could say more, the asteroids began to move. What the Zephyrians had mistaken for simple mining operations revealed themselves as massive weapons platforms disguised as natural debris. Thousands of them throughout the belt suddenly activated propulsion systems that operated on principles the Empire's scientists didn't recognize. "Impossible," Emperor Voskurl whispered. "They've converted the entire asteroid belt into a mobile fleet." The human response was swift and devastating. Instead of the crude, projectile weapons they had used in their previous encounter, the asteroid platforms opened fire with directed energy beams that seemed to bend space itself around their targets. The first Zephyrian ships to be hit didn't explode or disintegrate. They simply ceased to exist, erased from reality by weapons that operated on physics beyond Imperial understanding. "Evasive maneuvers," Admiral Kethvalor shouted, but it was too late. The human weapons tracked their targets with impossible precision, accounting for every defensive maneuver and countermeasure. In the span of 10 minutes, the Zephyrian Empire lost over 300 vessels to weapons that shouldn't have been possible for any civilization to build. "Return fire," Emperor Voskurl commanded. "All ships maximum firepower." The remaining Zephyrian fleet unleashed destruction on a scale that had conquered worlds. Energy weapons capable of cracking moons, particle beams that could sterilize continents, gravity bombs that could destabilize planetary cores, all of it directed at the human asteroid platforms. But instead of being destroyed, the human weapons absorbed every attack and grew stronger. Each Zephyrian blast seemed to feed power to systems that became increasingly devastating with every passing moment. "Your Majesty," Admiral Kethvalor's voice carried the first notes of real fear, "they're not just defending themselves. They're using our own weapons against us. Every shot we fire makes them more powerful." Emperor Voskurl watched in growing horror as his supposedly unstoppable armada was systematically dismantled by an enemy that seemed to violate every principle of warfare he understood. "Activate the absolute cascade generator. End this now." "Sire, the weapon isn't fully charged. Early activation could." "I don't care about the risks," the Emperor roared. "Activate it now." Deep within the Eternal Dominion, systems that had never been tested beyond theoretical models began to come online. The Absolute Cascade Generator was designed to trigger a chain reaction in enemy star systems that would cause their suns to collapse into black holes. It was the ultimate weapon of annihilation. But as the device powered up, something unexpected happened. Every human weapons platform in the system suddenly stopped firing and began transmitting on the same frequency. The voice that emerged from the Zephyrian communication systems was calm, almost conversational. Director Sarah Chen appeared on every screen throughout the Imperial fleet. "Hello again, Emperor Voskurl," she said, as if greeting an old friend. "We've been monitoring your preparations for the past several weeks. That's quite an impressive weapon you're charging up." The Emperor's rage had reached levels that made his translator struggle to convey his words. "How are you intercepting our communications? How are you?" "Still asking the wrong questions," Director Chen interrupted gently. "You're focused on how we're doing things when you should be asking why we're allowing you to do them." "Allowing us?" Admiral Kethvalor stepped forward. "You've lost over half your defensive platforms. Your civilization is about to be erased from existence." Director Chen's smile was visible to every being in the Zephyrian fleet, and somehow it was the most terrifying thing any of them had ever seen. "Admiral, those platforms you destroyed weren't our weapons. They were our decoys." The tactical displays throughout the Imperial fleet suddenly lit up with new contacts. Ships were emerging from hyperspace around the Zephyrian armada, not from the direction of human space, but from behind them, from the sides, from above and below. But these weren't ships in any sense that the Zephyrians understood. They were structures that defied classification, built from materials that shouldn't exist, powered by energy sources that violated basic physics. You see, Director Chen continued, her voice maintaining its conversational tone even as impossible vessels surrounded the most powerful military force in galactic history. While you were planning your assault on our system, we were preparing a little surprise of our own. Emperor Voskarl stared at the sensor readings that showed human vessels appearing throughout local space. Not dozens or hundreds, but thousands. Ships that registered energy signatures comparable to stellar phenomena. Impossible, he whispered. You don't have the industrial capacity to build a fleet this size. You don't have the resources, the time. You're right, Director Chen agreed. We didn't build these ships in our system. We built them in yours. The implications of her words hit the Zephyrian command like a physical blow. What do you mean? For the past 3 cycles, while you've been planning your revenge, human infiltration teams have been visiting every major Zephyrian facility, Director Chen explained. Your shipyards, your research stations, your military academies. We've been studying your technology, your tactics, your entire civilization. The displays around the Emperor showed images that couldn't be real. Humans walking freely through Zephyrian facilities, accessing their most classified information, operating their most advanced equipment. But more importantly, Director Chen continued, we've been building. Every ship in your fleet was manufactured in Zephyrian facilities using Zephyrian resources. Your own workers helped build the weapons that are now pointed at you. Admiral Kethvaler was checking his instruments frantically. Sire, they're correct. Our shipyard production records show massive discrepancies over the past 3 cycles. Materials and components listed as delivered but never actually received by our fleets. How? Emperor Voskarl's voice was barely a whisper. How did you infiltrate our entire empire without us noticing? For the first time, Director Chen's expression showed something other than calm confidence. It showed pity. Because you never bothered to really look at the species you were trying to exterminate, she said softly. Humans are remarkably adaptable, Emperor. We can survive in environments that would kill most species. We can learn languages in months that take others decades to master, and when we're motivated by the complete destruction of our homeworld. She paused, and her voice took on a harder edge. We can become anyone we need to be. The revelation was staggering. The Zephyrians suddenly understood that their empire had been completely compromised by beings they had considered primitive. Humans had been walking among them, working alongside them, learning everything there was to know about their technology and their weaknesses. Your absolute cascade generator is impressive, Director Chen observed as alarms began sounding throughout the Zephyrian fleet. But we've had 3 cycles to study the design. We know exactly how it works. Emperor Voskarl watched in horror as his ultimate weapon began to show system failures. What have you done? We've given you the same choice we offered the Galactic Council, Director Chen replied. You can surrender now and begin the process of learning to coexist peacefully with other species. Or, the human ships surrounding the Zephyrian fleet began to power up weapons that registered energy outputs beyond anything in Imperial records. Or you can discover what happens when humans decide that a species is too dangerous to be allowed to continue existing. The Emperor looked around at his magnificent fleet, his ultimate weapons, his 3,000 years of military supremacy, and realized that it was all meaningless. Humanity had outplayed them so completely that they had walked into their own trap without ever realizing it. What do you want? He asked finally, his voice carrying the defeat of ages. Director Chen's smile returned, but now it carried hope instead of threat. We want the same thing we've always wanted, Emperor. We want to survive, and we want to make sure that no other species ever has to go through what we went through. We want peace, but we're prepared for war. The choice, as always, is yours. 5 cycles after the confrontation that would become known as the Sol Revelation, the galaxy was a very different place. The massive amphitheater on Nexus Prime had been expanded to accommodate representatives from over 200 species, many of whom had been liberated from Zephyrian control in the aftermath of the Empire's surrender. Director Sarah Chen stood at the central podium, no longer the desperate leader of a dying species, but the architect of a new galactic order. Around her, beings from across known space listened with respectful attention as she delivered the annual State of the Galaxy address. 5 cycles ago, she began, her voice carrying easily through the translation matrices, humanity faced extinction. Today, we stand as partners with species we never dreamed existed, working together to build something that has never been seen in galactic history, a civilization based on cooperation rather than conquest. In the Zephyrian section of the amphitheater, former Emperor Voskarl listened with an expression that his people had never seen on his features before: humility. The transition had not been easy for his species, but the alternative had been annihilation. Humans had kept their promise to preserve those who chose peace, but they had also demonstrated their willingness to eliminate those who continued to choose war. The Galactic Cooperation Initiative has exceeded our most optimistic projections, Director Chen continued. Former slave species are now contributing technologies and perspectives that have accelerated our collective development beyond anything we thought possible. The hegemony's bioengineering expertise has helped us cure diseases that plagued dozens of species. The crystalline dominion's energy manipulation techniques have revolutionized our power systems. She gestured toward a section of the amphitheater where beings in environmental suits sat alongside creatures of living energy. Even species that were previously considered incompatible have found ways to work together when the goal is mutual advancement rather than mutual destruction. Ambassador Kethmora of the Selenian Union, who had become one of the most vocal supporters of the New Order, projected her thoughts to the assembly. The transformation has been remarkable not just in terms of technology, but in terms of perspective. Species that spent millennia viewing each other as threats or resources now collaborate as equals. Dr. Velturin, still the Council's chief xenobiologist, but now working under very different circumstances, activated his display to show statistical analyses of galactic development. The rate of technological advancement under the Cooperation Initiative has increased by a factor of 12 compared to the previous imperial model. More importantly, we've seen the emergence of entirely new fields of study that require multiple species working in concert. The holographic displays showed images of joint research stations where humans worked alongside beings of pure energy to explore quantum mechanics, where aquatic species collaborated with crystalline entities to develop new forms of mathematics, where former predator and prey species combined their perspectives to create revolutionary approaches to problem solving. But perhaps the most significant development, Director Chen observed, is what we've learned about the potential of species working together rather than competing for dominance. The central display shifted to show a star map of the local galactic region. Where once it had been dominated by the red territories of the Zephyrian Empire, now it showed a complex web of cooperative relationships indicated by lines of different colors connecting hundreds of systems. The Nexus project has achieved something we initially thought impossible, Dr. James Morrison announced from the human delegation. By combining the unique capabilities of 47 different species, we've created technological solutions that no single civilization could have developed independently. The Nexus project was humanity's greatest achievement since their survival of the Cascade bombardment. Instead of simply building better weapons or stronger defenses, they had created a collaborative research network that allowed species with completely different ways of perceiving reality to share their insights directly. The results speak for themselves, Dr. Alina Vasquez added, her quantum physics expertise now enhanced by direct collaboration with beings who existed partially outside normal spacetime. We've achieved faster-than-light communication, matter-energy conversion efficiency approaching 90%, and computational capabilities that allow us to model galactic-scale phenomena in real time. High Counselor Zarthal, whose ancient wisdom had guided the transition from the old order to the new, raised a tentacle to address the assembly. The question that concerns many of our member species is whether this cooperative model can be sustained as we encounter new civilizations beyond our current borders. It was a valid concern. Long-range surveys had detected signs of intelligent life in neighboring galactic regions, and some of the signals suggested technological capabilities that might rival or exceed current galactic standards. Director Chen nodded acknowledgement of the counselor's point. That brings us to today's primary announcement. The Galactic Cooperation Initiative is ready to expand beyond our current borders. Project Outreach will begin systematic contact with extragalactic civilizations within the next 2 cycles. The announcement sent waves of excitement and concern through the assembled representatives. Contact with truly alien intelligences had always been theoretical. Now it was becoming reality. The human perspective on this expansion may be unique, Director Chen continued, because we've experienced both sides of first contact. We know what it's like to be the primitive species facing superior technology. We also know what it's like to be underestimated by more advanced civilizations. She paused, and her expression grew serious. We will not repeat the mistakes of the old imperial model. Any civilization we encounter will be approached with respect, offered partnership rather than subjugation, and given the opportunity to contribute their unique capabilities to our collective advancement. Former Emperor Voskarl rose from his seat, a gesture that drew attention throughout the amphitheater. His translation indicated a request to address the assembly, something that would have been unthinkable under the old order. Director Chen, he began, his voice carrying tones of respect that his species had never shown to non-Zephyrians. Speaking for my people, we want to acknowledge the wisdom of the path you've chosen. The Zephyrian Empire believed that strength came from domination and control. We now understand that true strength comes from cooperation and mutual support. The former emperor gestured toward the diverse assembly around him. In 5 cycles, we've achieved more scientific advancement, more cultural development, and more genuine security than we accomplished in 3,000 cycles of conquest. The human approach to galactic civilization has proven superior to our own in every measurable way. Director Chen's response was gracious but firm. The success belongs to all of us, not just to humanity. What we've proven is that diversity of thought and approach leads to solutions that no single perspective could achieve. She activated a new display showing the planned expansion routes for Project Outreach. Each contact mission will include representatives from multiple species, ensuring that we approach new civilizations with the full range of galactic perspectives rather than any single cultural viewpoint. Representative Morgoth of the Titanium Collective, whose engineering expertise had become crucial to the cooperative model, highlighted specific aspects of the expansion plan. The contact protocols developed by the initiative ensure that we never present ourselves as conquerors or judges. We offer knowledge and seek knowledge in return. But what if we encounter species that choose hostility over cooperation? Asked Ambassador Yilzeth of the Crystalline Dominion. Not every civilization may be willing to embrace the cooperative model. For a moment, Director Chen's expression showed something that reminded the assembly of humanity's darker capabilities. Then they'll learn the same lesson the Zephyrian Empire learned. The age of conquest is over. Species that choose to prey on others will discover that the galaxy now contains protectors who are more than capable of stopping them. The human delegation exchanged glances that carried meanings the other species were still learning to interpret. Humanity's transformation from victims to protectors had been complete, but they had never forgotten the lessons of their near extinction. However, Director Chen continued, her expression returning to its normal calm confidence, we believe that most civilizations, when offered genuine partnership instead of subjugation, will choose cooperation. The benefits are simply too obvious to ignore. Dr. Veltaren projected new statistical models showing projected galactic development under various scenarios. If current trends continue, we estimate that within 50 cycles, the Galactic Cooperation Initiative could encompass most intelligent life in the local galactic cluster. The technological and cultural advancement possibilities are literally beyond our current ability to calculate. As the assembly session drew to a close, Director Chen made one final observation that would be remembered throughout galactic history. 5 cycles ago, humanity faced a choice between extinction and survival. We chose survival, and that choice led us to become something greater than we ever imagined possible. She looked around the vast amphitheater filled with beings that represented the diversity of intelligent life in the galaxy. Today, we offer the same choice to every civilization we encounter. Not survival versus extinction, but isolation versus cooperation. The universe is vast enough for every species to thrive, but only if we work together to make it so. The assembly rose in a gesture of unity that had become traditional under the new order, each species expressing approval in their own way, creating a symphony of sound, light, and energy that represented the successful fusion of hundreds of different forms of intelligence. As the representatives began to disperse, planning for the next phase of galactic expansion, few of them noticed the small group of humans who remained behind. Their heads bowed in a moment of remembrance for the billions who had died in the Cascade bombardment. They had achieved something unprecedented in galactic history, a civilization based on cooperation rather than conquest. But they never forgot that their success had been built on the ashes of their homeworld and the sacrifice of those who didn't live to see the better galaxy that had emerged from humanity's darkest hour. The age of fear was over. The age of cooperation had begun. And throughout the galaxy, former predators and prey, conquerors and conquered, worked side by side to build something that had never existed before, a truly united galactic civilization. The universe would never be the same.